The leadership of the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, has called on the three tiers of government in the country to rise up to the challenge of the coronavirus disease, also known as COVID-19, now that the country has experienced the disease.
Well, CAN calls on the federal government and other tiers of government to be proactive in order to contain it and prevent the spread of the virus.
The association stated this on their part. They said they will not cease praying until the disease is chased out of the shores of Nigeria, also urging every Christian to make water, soap, and sanitizers available for worshippers before and after every service.
The Christian Association is also appealing to all Nigerians, irrespective of their religious and political persuasions, to embrace simple rules of hygiene regularly for safety reasons. Well, joining us now is Reverend Dr. Ukpuho, the Chairman, Christian Council of Nigeria, North Central, Head of Presbyterian Church in FCT Abuja, and an executive member of CAN. Good morning, sir. If you can hear me, it's a pleasure to have you with us this morning. Well,
good morning.
Okay, so let's go straight into it. I actually want to bring your attention to a story that was making the rounds about 3 days ago, whereby a lot of religious institutions, mostly churches, have actually ignored the recommendations put forward by the WHO Health Organization about hygiene, washing your hands, using hand sanitizers, and have actually attributed that to the fact that the Holy Spirit would take care of it. What's your reaction to that?
Obviously, that report has not captured the totality of what is happening. There may be some churches that are yet to actively comply, but I can also say on authority that many churches are in compliance. I know of churches, I know of our church, the Presbyterian Church, that there have been a massive mobilization of efforts to make sure we comply in times like this. So many churches are complying, but those who are not yet have not yet complied, I'm sure very soon with the mobilization and encouragement that CAN is giving to Christians, they will soon join.
What about sanctions? Because I feel it's important to not just say that are aware that not all the churches are practicing this. But if there are people that are using religion as a way to let people ignore these recommendations that have been put in place, should there be sanctions put down by CAN, for example?
Obviously, we cannot talk about sanctions at this point. What we need to focus on is to encourage compliance, not necessarily sanctions. But I must also say that anybody who is hiding under the cover of religion or spirituality not to do the needful is obviously not doing the right thing. God is very clear about this, even in scriptures. If you go through the Bible, you'll see that the first authority on hygiene and cleanliness and environmental care is God himself, according to the scripture. And you cannot talk about faith without works. Jesus himself enjoined his disciples to watch and pray. How do you watch? You are doing the practical aspects of spirituality and also doing prayers and fasting. So watch and pray requires that every Christian should be wise in observing the practical things of life, the commandments that God has given to us that we should follow, and then we combine it with our prayers. That is a holistic faith and a holistic Christianity that we should practice. And therefore, we'll be surprised that some people will, on account of their spirituality, not observe basic rules of hygiene.
Right, Reverend Dr. Ukpuho, once again, it's a pleasure having you here. I just want to ask, because while I was reading the statement put out by the Christian bodies in this country, I didn't see where they addressed, some brethren or pastors online saying they have a cure to coronavirus. And these are pastors that lead quite a sizable sum in their congregation. I mean, we have videos and everywhere online that shows some pastors even saying, you know what, they are going in the spirit to China to solve the corona problem. They are bringing all sorts of water out. They call it corona holy water. That once they sprinkle on you, you don't need hand sanitizer. You are healed of corona. I mean, where will the Christian body tell the populace to be careful of people like this?
Well, obviously, in times like this, you have to, it's like a time of war. This is a war kind of situation. You are bound to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. I would really say that it is absolutely very difficult for the Christian body to watch over every. We have 200 million Nigerians, and then you cannot count the number of pastors from different church persuasions, denominations and persuasions. So what we have done is to encourage people to pay attention to their Bible. The scripture is our number one guide, not even the pastors. And anything that somebody tells you that you cannot conveniently verify as having a scriptural warrant should be kept aside. Therefore, I would want people to be circumspect and be wise and not to follow anybody, whether it's pastor or a pope or imam or whatever, blindly. On matters of religion, that's why Karl Marx said that religion is opium of the masses. It is always easy to capitalize on situations like this to mislead people. So, but Khan believes that we should do the right thing.
Well, at a time like this, you also question the impact and the effect of an umbrella body such as CAN for religious following in the country such as Nigeria. But let me ask you, because in Lagos State, where we have the 2 cases in the country at the moment being managed, the government has met with the Nigeria Inter-Religious Council to sensitize the leaders, basically, who then passes messages to their followers. Tell us, have you had such meetings in Abuja, in the North Central? And if not, are you instigating such?
As I'm talking to you now, the umbrella body of Interreligious Council in Nigeria, which is a federal government instituted organ, NIREC, the Nigerian Interreligious Council, is meeting or about to meet. And I can assure you, this is a meeting of the topmost hierarchy of the 2 main religions in Nigeria. The Sultan of Sokoto is a co-chair, and His Eminence, the CAN president, Ayokunle, is also a co-chair. There are other top Christian leaders are about to meet. And for sure, this is going to form part of the conversations that will be taken up in the meeting, and after which I believe a statement, a further statement will be issued to guide Christians and even Muslims and all religious faithfuls on these issues and many other issues.
Okay, Reverend, I would like to know your current thoughts on the efforts of the NCDC, the Ministry of Health, as well as the state's government in approaching this, the COVID-19 as it stands, especially now that it's been declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization. What are your thoughts on this?
If you listen to the statement of WHO, one of the issues they have raised and have decried as a global concern is the issue of inaction. And so globally, it has been adjudged to be very low. Action has been adjudged to be very low. And the situation is not different in Nigeria. If you remember the other day, the Senate President went to Gwagwalada Teaching Hospital and almost cried because what he saw was a very big disappointment that in the Federal Capital Territory, as at the time he went to Gwagwalada, there was no center to isolate any victim. And therefore, and up till now, nobody has told us that that situation has changed. Maybe it has, but we have not been told. If it is not well in the Federal Capital Territory, you can think of what will happen in the local governments. You can think of what will happen in the states. So we have a reason to call on governments at all levels to not to pay lip service to this situation and to rise up to the challenges that are facing us. Not only in terms of the disease itself, but the implications of the disease on the economy and the social life of the people. So government should provide leadership, which we thank God for what they have done so far, but we believe a lot needs to be done.
Okay. So I want to ask you this straight, because most churches are bigger than institutions these days. Most churches have universities, most churches have hospitals. Two questions. The first one is CAN having like a platform at which maybe when indigent members of society and members of the congregation present with various symptoms in hospitals owned by churches, they send them to the disease management center and they send them for further testing on corona. I also want to ask, CAN has a lot of resource, by the virtue of the fact that most churches have universities and they have scientific departments and they do a lot of research. I mean, is that something CAN can take head on as regards their churches that have universities to do more research or partner with Center for Disease Control in Nigeria to be able to, bring about a quick resolution to this challenge?
Well, let me correct one impression that CAN has a lot of resources. CAN is an umbrella body of all the churches and Christians in Nigeria. And I want to tell you, CAN is like a goat that is owned by everybody who may end up dying of hunger. The churches may be rich individually, but I can tell you that is not reflected in CAN as a body. That is one. Number two, I thank you for appreciating the enormous contributions of churches in the development initiatives of this country in terms of schools, hospitals, universities, and all that. And I want to add that the churches will not stop contributing. And if it requires welfare and support for victims, as we are already doing for even victims of insurgency, the churches will rise up to the occasion. The churches will be there for members who are affected or infected.
Well, Reverend Dr. Ukpuho, we'll go on a quick break. When we'll come back, we'll talk some more about just how seriously the church is taking the outbreak or the pandemic of COVID-19, as well as some other issues in the country concerning people of faith in Nigeria. Please stay with us. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. You're still watching The Morning Show here on the Rise News, and Reverend Dr. Ukpuho, the Chairman, Christian Association of Nigeria, NORTHCENTRAL, as well as the head of Presbyterian Church in the nation's capital, Abuja, and an executive member of CAN as well, has been speaking with us on the issue of the coronavirus disease outbreak, which the WHO has now declared a pandemic. Thank you so much, Reverend, for staying with us. We're looking at the role of the church in all of this because the Christian Association of Nigeria was sort of proactive to release that statement, urging the federal government and government at all levels, not to politicize this disease. But let me ask you really, how serious is the church about this? Because Sahara reporters did a survey. They went around Lagos, Abuja, Jos, and some other states to check just how the churches are responding to this. And they found out that majority of the churches are not even taking to CAN's directive. CAN had directed in that statement that churches should have water, soap, sanitizers before the congregation goes in and comes out. But a lot of churches are not doing that. How seriously are the churches taking this, in your own opinion? And what are you doing to follow up on that? And as we step away from the COVID-19 outbreak, let me also ask you something else, because the Minister of Information in Nigeria, Lai Mohammed, last week says there is intelligence that the Boko Haram insurgents plan to attack Christians in churches. Have you been in communication with the government? Have they told you this? And what are you doing to secure the churches?
Starting from the first issue of poor Christian response to the practical ways we should take care of ourselves in this pandemic, I am happy to hear from that survey that churches are not complying as they should. And I want to tell you that Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, is also happy to get that feedback that Christians are not responding the way they should. Accordingly, the hierarchy of Christian Association of Nigeria will take further steps. In addition to the statements that has been issued generally, I can assure you, will take further steps to engage church leaders at all levels to ensure that there is further compliance. It is in the best interest of the church, it is in the best interest of the nation that churches that have a lot of people gathering day in, day out should be very serious about all the practical measures that we should take to prevent this. So on that ground, on that score, I assure you that CAN will take further steps to engage. That is number one. On the issue of the second issue, can you remind me what you said on the second issue?
Yes, intelligence by the federal government saying that the Boko Haram insurgent plans to attack churches and Christians.
Okay, all right, all right. We have heard that, but obviously it is not expedient to sit on this live program to talk about what the churches are doing about their security, internal security, or what government is even doing to support the security of churches. But one assurance I'm giving to you and giving to the public and to everybody in the whole world is that if we had relaxed in our security measures, which has been put in place long before now, every church in this country had developed some form of security mechanisms to protect members during worship. And if there have been any attempt to relax, as it should have been, this information is going to bring us back to igniting all our security measures to ensure that we live up to expectation and protect people in their places of worship. So that information is welcome, and we will act accordingly. But I can't give you details of what is being done.
Okay, I've got two quick questions. The first one, because the bulk of the churches that have and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, that have a very sizable crowd are mostly the Pentecostal churches. So I'd like to know the synergy between CAN and PFN. I mean, because you have some Pentecostal churches have crusades and they number hundreds of thousands of people that go in there. One just had their program recently. So what's the synergy between CAN and PFN as Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria as regards this? And I also want to look very strongly at even congregation size. We don't pray for it. Take, for instance, somebody's in a congregation that has about 300,000 people closely packed together, starts to cough or sneeze. We know how coronavirus spreads. In the future, as we look at this and as this goes on, is CAN going to explore options like, having online services. You know, people should join up through a certain website to join up the church service. They don't really need to congregate, you know, to be able to stem the tide of this. Countries like Italy is on quarantine as we speak now. Most people are on lockdown. We can be looking at these options. And the first question, like I asked for, what's the partnership and the synergy like with PFN on this?
There is a very robust relationship between CAN and PFN and all the blocks of CAN. It might interest you to know that CAN is made up of 5 different blocks of churches. PFN is just one of the 5 blocks. And CAN is relating equally with the 5 blocks. It's not isolating anybody because we are talking about relationship, we are talking about organization and the structure of CAN. And therefore, even though you show a special interest because of the large crowd and followings in some Pentecostal churches, yes, what CAN is doing with PFN CAN is also doing with other blocks. And PFN obviously is working with CAN, is under the authority of the Christian body called CAN, which is the umbrella body for all of us as Christians. So there is a robust relationship, and if CAN issues instructions and asks us to do anything, everybody will comply. If you remember, the last time CAN called for a solemn march around this country, even pastors and church leaders in the Pentecostal fellowships like the General Overseer of the Redeemed Church was on the street leading and obeying the CAN's call out. Therefore, there is a good relationship. Whatever CAN says we will do, most churches will comply.
Okay.
The second
question, sir, about online services as well and reduction of gathering of crowds.
The online services, obviously, that is obviously going on as we are talking. Most churches now stream their services online, and people have the option of staying at home to watch or watching on the go and taking a personal decision. But we cannot legislate on that because this is a matter of faith and religion. Some people believe that church is not complete without the human-to-human fellowship and engagement. And therefore, you cannot force them not to gather. And we are not praying, and we are actually praying against it, that this situation in Nigeria will not escalate to the point that we will have a complete lockdown and we cannot go to churches again. No, our prayer is that we should never come to that. I'm sure that's what you will be praying for too. And therefore, we cannot direct churches to close down and not to go, because we cannot do that. We will send panic into the system. And federal government has not told us to lock down and stop going to churches or schools. Things are going on normally because the situation in Nigeria is, for now, under control. So we don't pray for any situation that we'll have to close churches. Okay. Fellowship continues both online and physically.
Okay. So should we be doing more to help find a cure? For example, how can the Christian Association of Nigeria mobilize a coronavirus fund, for example, to help support government efforts or the efforts of research institutions? Because we know that a big part of this, apart from the science, is the money that is involved. So is there anything CAN can do?
Yeah, well, that's a novel idea. You have introduced something that we may have to think about, but like I had told you before, CAN does not have any university, but different individual churches and denominations have universities. And we, under the umbrella of CAN, we can encourage those denominations and churches that are well endowed with abundant resources to think in that direction. So this is an idea that obviously CAN can run with and encourage those who have the capacity to engage in research and or funding of researches to do so.
Well, you did mention that there was a meeting taking place in Abuja today with NIREC, which is an umbrella for top hierarchy of religious bodies in Nigeria. But beyond all of this, what is the public information that you are engaging in? I mean, you have said the churches should have hand sanitizers and the personal hygiene and all of that, but are you, like you had the matches, prayer walk around the country, are you mobilizing to also sensitize the people on what they should be doing at this point? Is the church looking at that?
Yes, the first step has been taken. You are quoting very well from the statement that has been issued by CAN. And secondly, you have also informed us of the recent research that Sahara reporters have done about poor compliance. And I have also assured you that we are going to follow up on that lead to ensure that more efforts are put in place at different worship centers. But the issue of maybe calling out people for a walk and all that, obviously, you know, is not expedient at this point in time, because the more you reduce gathering of people, the better for us. So we can't talk about calling out people on a street walk.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about calling out people. I was saying sensitizing the people, just having mass information spread. But thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Ukpuho, for coming on the show today. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much.